So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's informational session with the Los Angeles Review of Books Publishing Workshop. We have today with us Irene Yoon, who is the Executive Director of LARB and the Director of the Publishing Workshop, and Sonia Ali, who is the Assistant Director of the Publishing Workshop and the Managing Editor of LARB Books. So they are just going to talk today about the publishing workshop, which is taking place this summer. As you may have seen in the publicity that I've sent out, 2 students from UCI will be offered scholarships to attend the workshop. And I guess I will let them take it from there.
Sure. Thanks so much, Eugene, for organizing all of this. I know, well, as we were discussing, I guess, before we started, no, Megan is already pretty familiar with the program since we've already been in communication about that from last year. And Kendra, I'm not sure how much you already know about the program, but I guess also just in case some of the folks who are going to be tuning in to the recording aren't as familiar, we could maybe start by giving a little bit of background about how and why the program came into existence. So the program started in 2017. So this is going to be our 4th year going into the program, which is very exciting. And it began, I think, in large part as a response to something that's, I guess, become very commonplace and common knowledge now, which is the lack of diversity in the publishing industry. But I think in 2016 was kind of a scandal in response to a survey that came out through Lee and Low that where they had kind of canvassed all of the major publishing houses and various other publications to get a sense of who is actually working in publishing, and realizing that it by and large tended to be the same kind of person. And so I think, in thinking about that context and about the kinds of values that I think LARB also want to espouse as an organization, namely like trying to really prioritize accessibility and making the case for a very different kind of publishing than just the, big 5, like New York-based trade conglomerates. Like we really wanted to highlight publishing that was happening across the country and through like smaller organizations and little upstart things, kind of like what LARB was. And so I think all of those things kind of converged to create this program, where we wanted to be able to offer students the kind of professional training and access to professionals within the industry that they might get at a more established program like the Columbia Publishing Workshop, or publishing course, or the NYU Summer Publishing Institute, but one that would really try and lower some of these barriers to entry for students, one of them being finances. And so we really wanted to make financial aid a big part of it. We wanted to make recruiting for diversity of background and experience a big part of it, and also wanted the curriculum to reflect that commitment as well. So we have, I guess, over 50 speakers who are working at all areas of the industry coming to talk to our students. People working at big 5 publishing companies, people working at tiny, independent publishing houses, people working in new media, people working in distribution and sales, like all the different areas of book and magazine publishing. We wanted to try and get some coverage of, to be able to offer students some insight into the overall. Yeah. Put a cute cat. And so that was kind of the impetus for that. And we've had 4 years, we're going into our 4th year, I guess. Or no, we've had 4 years. Am I counting? 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. So we're going into our 5th year. Sorry, kid. And so we've had over 200 students who've come through the program now and have gone on to really wonderful jobs. And we're really happy that we're in communication and contact with a lot of them. In addition to having the, the summer course, we do really make an effort to try and keep in touch and stay up to date with all of our alumni. We have a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks where we spotlight some of the really exciting work that our students are doing out in the world, and also showcase, different job opportunities and internship opportunities and things like that. We try to do periodic, once upon a time we did happy hours, in person at places around Los Angeles, and hopefully we'll be able to, start something like that up again. But we've done things like workshops on like how to, pitch a piece, or workshops on like how to write a grant, or things like that, like during the year as well. So that's a little bit, I guess, of background around how we started, and where we're at now is because of the current circumstances, a 5-week virtual course. Last year we also likewise were virtual because of the pandemic, and I think probably like many of us here, we were not sure how that would go. Just like to be perfectly honest, but I think. And Sonia, I don't want to speak for you, but we've talked about this before too. We were both like so pleasantly surprised by how fun and well it went. I think in part because there's something about the virtual format that actually really works well for the kind of program that we do and the kind of community that we're able to build and the collaborative work that they're able to do via Slack and through Zoom and in the chat, like during the sessions and things like that, was really quite nice. And so I feel like we ended up having a very tight-knit group that was, that got to know each other in some ways a lot better than they might have otherwise, where, people are free to kind of just do their own thing. So yeah, so that's a little bit about, I think, the origins of the program and the kind of general, like, I guess, ethos of what we try to do and accomplish both during the time of the workshop during those 5 weeks and also in the time afterwards. Maybe I'll turn it over to Sonia to talk a little bit more about just the structure of the actual program itself and what the day-to-day looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to add to the sort of piece that you gave about the move to virtual, I think that that's exactly right. You're welcome to speak for me on that because I know we've had a lot of conversations about it. I think, like most of us, we had no idea, like how it would kind of turn out because, most of us were not sitting on Zoom for 8 hours a day prior to the pandemic. And so, I think that, so I guess to say a little bit about the structure of how we did that was we built out a Slack workspace where we had all of the students sign up in advance and we kind of set it up with channels. And like one, what's kind of a good practice to get into for the workplace, but two, it also just served as like a good place for them to get to know each other outside of, I guess, like the kind of normal ways one might learn things about each other in person while kind of running around between rooms at a campus or between sessions and things like that. And I think that was a really positive addition to the program that I think lended itself to a lot of that kind of closeness and bonding that happened. And so the other component outside of the Slack was just the Zoom. Similar to how we're doing here, we would have the speaker kind of on screen doing their thing and the fellows in the chat on the side. And I think that, it was kind of surprising to me how willing people were to jump into that environment, and surprising in a good way. And so that's kind of how the online program works. And of course, then we utilize things like the breakout rooms for the one-on-one sessions, which is a really kind of special part of our program, I think, where the speakers kind of stick around after their talk or panel or workshop for about an hour usually and do 10-minute one-on-one sessions with people that we have them sign up for in advance. And so I think that a lot of really positive connections come from that. And I think it kind of serves as a really nice way to level the playing field, which is something that I think we're pretty conscious about. It's like outside of just kind of like diversity in fellows and participants and stuff like that, we try and be aware of like, okay, who knows that they can like go up and speak to one of these speakers after their session and ask for their contact information and stuff like that. So I think that's like a way that we've tried to sort of like horizontalize the experience. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, the situation with the virtual workshop. I think so this year we're kind of, we'll have, I should back up actually. So in previous years, we had Pub Lab, which is sort of the magazine track where students go through. So over the course of the workshop, the true beginning stages of creating a magazine, from like submitting work, we send out the call beforehand, to the end of that process by having issue of the magazine hosted online, and it's a channel of LARB. And so we take them through that entire process, which is very overwhelming at first, but I think, it's we've paced it. And so that's kind of the magazine component, and it's everybody gets a role that they're kind of filling that's, reflecting a real role at a real magazine, and structured after LARB's own magazine. And then the flip side of that we'll be having this year is our bookmaking track. So that's kind of, I think that's like been the really cool and exciting thing about the workshop up to this point, is I think that we've been able to like really adapt and understand like what people are really interested in, and then we kind of are rolling the book track into that this year to sort of separate people who are primarily interested in magazines, ranging from like print to digital or things like that, to people who are interested in either working in a book press or founding their own book press. So that's been a big component of the publishing workshop since it began, like the emphasis on entrepreneurship, and that really comes from LARB itself as like an entrepreneurial project of our founder, Tom Lutz. It started as a Tumblr in his basement, as you might know, might not know. And so, yeah, so what happens in the book track is actually pretty similar to what happens in the magazine track, where it's kind of walking through like not just, I guess the typical of like, editing and things like that, but it really focuses on design and how to fundraise for a book press and how to do all of the things, create a mission statement, create a brand, and all of those things. And so that's kind of how that works. And over the 5 weeks of the workshop. And am I missing anything, Irene?
No, I mean, I think you really hit on it. I mean, I guess maybe just like to underscore like a point you already made, I do think that's something that has been really important to us as we've Sonia and I have been working together for a couple of years now, which is very nice, and have done a lot of work, I think, on trying to really, build and adapt the curriculum according to like what we see like works and doesn't work pedagogically. And one of the things that I think we've really tried to be mindful of is diversifying the kinds of approaches. So, as Sonia was saying, you'll have an opportunity to hear from like speakers in like a kind of lecture format. You'll be able to talk to them in a Q&A. Some of them will be holding like smaller, smaller group skills-based workshops, and some of them will be available for these one-on-one sessions. And similarly, like, we try to divide the day up so that, you'll have opportunities to hear from speakers doing the work that they're doing in various parts of the publishing industry, which is very exciting. But you'll also get this kind of hands-on time. So when you're in these different tracks, which generally kind of breaks into like morning and afternoon sessions. Like the morning sessions are kind of more like classes, I guess, and like more like kind of like, like lecture or like seminar formats. And then the afternoons are more kind of hands-on, like where you're really just, like learning the skills of the various trades. And so that's been really fun, I think, and worked well, both in the virtual and in the in-person format. So that's been exciting to see kind of take off and students really flourish in those ways. But trying to think if there's what else. What else is
I had a quick question, actually.
Sure.
So just to clarify, do you have a book track and then a magazine track, or that you have to choose at the beginning kind of what you want to sort of explore?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So that's a change that we've implemented for this year. So actually, and for students who applied and deferred, that reminds me actually, we should get in touch with you guys about that, because that is just like a slight difference where we ask people to at least indicate their preference, and obviously you can change it as things get closer if you decide like suddenly like, oh my gosh, I actually really want to start a magazine, so forget that book track, whatever. But yeah, so they would choose one or the other. And the nice thing is, I mean, we cover all of those things throughout. So, in terms of the general like arc of the the speakers that we have come in and the kinds of things that we end up talking about in these morning sessions. The first like week and a half or so are dedicated to book publishing. The second week and a half are dedicated to magazine publishing. And then the last week or so is dedicated to new media and like digital publishing. So you'll still get a chance to, to learn quite a lot. If you're in the magazine track, you'll still learn a ton about book publishing from all the people who are coming in. You just won't necessarily be like creating like a cover and InDesign and doing that side of it. The other thing that is actually quite nice too with the virtual format is that we record all the sessions and make them all available. So if you're feeling very ambitious and you want to, get like lessons from both sides of the tracks too, I mean, those would also be available for people to watch asynchronously as they will. And that also I think is kind of an important piece to us too, because one of the really nice things about moving online, in addition to having the kind of like really fun, surprising engagement in like Zoom chats and on Slack and things like that, is that it has made the program more accessible to people who have like other like life commitments or work commitments and aren't able to necessarily be, at every single session all day long. They can still, catch up and participate by like watching some recorded sessions and things like that too, which has been really nice. But yeah, so they are separate tracks, but there are ways to kind of work around that if you're really interested in both. So.
Yeah, and I think that one thing about that kind of makes me think as Irene was speaking, now that I'm thinking about it, is like I think that the biggest difference in like choosing one of them would mostly be the hands-on activities. But I think we're pretty mindful when creating the program and putting it together, and kind of considering speakers. It's like, okay, like, can this person speak to everybody in both tracks? And I think at this point we have a pretty good sense of who tends to come by. But so it is mostly, I would say, the hands-on activities, and again, totally like open for folks if they want to, create a book cover. They're welcome to. They have all the recordings. They have access to the Zoom speakers and stuff like that. Yeah.
I didn't know if Megan or Kianru had any specific questions, or if either Sonia or Irene could maybe talk a little bit more specifically to the application process or what you're looking for. That might be helpful.
Sure. Yeah. So applications are open now. Our deadline is April 15th. The application is pretty straightforward. We didn't want it to be like super onerous. We just wanted it to be an opportunity to get to know the applicants and their interests in the program. So it involves like a very brief like personal statement where you just describe your interest in the program, the kinds of career goals that you have, and how you see this program fitting into that, or potentially, facilitating those goals in whatever ways they might. And there's also an opportunity to apply for scholarship funding in the same application. So if, we ask for, I think, either a recent FAFSA or a recent tax statement or some kind, along with a script brief, like one-page statement, just narrativizing your interest in scholarship and need. And there's also an optional kind of slot for submitting any of the work samples if you want to, if you have some experience in publishing that you're excited about and want us to know about, to kind of get a fuller sense of like, where you're coming from. You can share those with us too. It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory in part because, we want to recognize that like people are coming to the program from very different backgrounds and different kinds of experience. And so some people might have a ton of publishing experience. Some people might have zero. And that's okay. I think the things that we're primarily looking for are, applicants who are committed to, to very seriously considering, if not already pursuing, a career in publishing, because we do want this program to be as meaningful and as useful as possible. And I think unless you're, very actively considering these positions or your place within this industry, it might not be quite as useful and helpful. And so that's something that we try and keep an eye out for. I think we also are just really, I think we really appreciate when people are clearly just excited about attending, which, you know, I think maybe is like a very kind of no-brainer statement, but I do think, you know, it is a program that I feel like has been buoyed by the kind of collective like energy and investment of all of the students who've been part of it. And so I think that's something that we are really, you know, glad to see when there's just, you know, enthusiasm for the enterprise and for the project of spending 5 weeks in, you know, kind of long days, you know, with us. I mean, I promise it'll be fun, but it is a commitment. And so I think that is something that we, you know, we are, you know, we try to be very clear about, and also hope that an applicant would be able to communicate to some extent to us too. I don't know, Sonia, is there anything else that
I
like
really,
you're looking for in applicants when you're reviewing?
Yeah, no, I really agree with the point that, you know, we want to know more about the applicant. We want to know like what they want to know, essentially. I don't think we're looking for any kind of cookie cutter type person. That's kind of exactly what we don't want. Hence the, you know, creation of the program. And so I think, yeah, letting us know kind of like what you're all about, what your background is, what you want your future to be, and like what you want out of the workshop, I think is really important, because it does, like Irene says, shows a lot of, shows that you're going to be able to kind of like commit to the program. And it's fun, but it is a commitment. Yes, that I think that is definitely very true. I mean, like anything, I suppose. And I feel like there was one other thing that I was going to say, but I forgot. Maybe we can come back to it.
Did Megan or Keanu have any questions or comments?
I think I'm good. You guys kept answering my questions as they came up. So that's awesome. I was mainly just interested in hearing how the virtual format went last year, but it sounds great. And then I'm excited that there's some crossover between the book and magazine tracks, because I'm really interested in magazine publishing, but I have some undergrad mentees who've been really excited about book publishing lately and are asking me how to get into the industry, and I'm like, I wish I had answers. So I'm excited that I can learn more about that as well. So sounds great. Thank you both.
Does the book track end with like a tangible work product at the end as well, or is it okay? That's cool.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's really fun. We actually did like kind of an abbreviated version of this in January with the designer that we work with for LARB Books, Tom Kavita, who is delightful. And so we worked with him on creating curriculum for that whole process. So like, how do you go from potentially not having ever opened Adobe InDesign, which is kind of you know, a daunting program,
right,
to creating actually and producing like, you know, an entire book from you know, like from the cover and all the ISBN, all of those details, like down to like every like last letter of the layout internally. And he like walks you through how to do how to publish it as an e-publication, how to publish it as a print publication through a digital printer like lulu.com. And so at the end of it, ideally, the goal would be that my students would have a book in hand, whether that's like in electronic hand or in print hand is kind of up to them. But yeah, so I mean, you can work with a text that, you know, either like your own text, maybe if you want to publish your own writing in that form, which would be really cool and great to see. Or if you want to like pull something that's like in the public domain from like Gutenberg or something like that and give it your own twist. Yeah, so that's been a really fun part of the project. And so ideally there would be a tangible product for both the magazine and book track participants at the end of it. Oh, and I should say also, you know, in terms of participating in PubLab, all of the content is from the fellows. And so whether you're in the book track or the magazine track, you're very welcome to submit and to have your work, you know, edited and polished up and, and published as part of that issue. So
that's great. I guess I feel like I'm asking all the questions, but do you feel like the program in the past 5 years has kind of created a kind of pipeline into publishing? Because I remember when I was sort of exploring publishing as a career, one of the barriers was, in fact, that you have to have experience, but usually that experience is expected. It's expected that you won't be paid for that experience or something. And so I was like, well, I don't think I can do that, or I didn't know exactly who I could talk to about that. And so that kind of discouraged me from pursuing that further. But I'm just curious if most of your alums have gone into publishing in some way or another.
Yeah, I think that's a situation that a lot of them kind of find themselves in. I think that we're kind of like uniquely addressing. And I personally kind of also come from that experience. Like when I was in school, I did not know that you could do an internship. And so I always try and kind of think about that like some things that feel very obvious to some, like others don't know about necessarily, or don't have any, like you're like, okay, get an internship. Like, how do I do that? Especially in an industry as kind of like nebulous and mystifying as publishing. And I think that a lot of that is just like the historical kind of like entryways in has been inaccessible to a lot of people. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that we've had a lot of success with fellows going in and finding jobs and connecting with people through the publishing workshop, specifically, like whether it's jobs or internships or apprenticeships or any of that stuff, or just like further conversations, which is like always really lovely and nice and, generous on the speaker's part. I attended the publishing workshop. I should have led with that, and I realized that I didn't while I was saying that. So I saw Irene kind of perk up, and I was like, oh yes, I forgot. I attended the publishing workshop in 2018, and so obviously I am here.
You are a successful example of somebody having gone through the workshop.
Yeah. And so at the time I was working as an editor for a small Arab American literary journal in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And when I attended the publishing workshop, I think I like kind of had a sense of like things that I liked and didn't like, but really wanted to kind of spend time focusing and thinking about, my career and what was even available and possible to me. Because like I said, like that was like never something that I necessarily felt supported in my life. Not to throw people under the bus, but that just wasn't part of my experience personally. And so I think for me, it was really helpful to just kind of hear from so many different types of people, not just kind of like speaking about their jobs, but speaking just about like whatever, anything that, whether it was like related to like their kind of like identity, their pathways, either into their job or like, just anything that they had to say, because I do think that like, like a lot of the population does not really have like a concentrated time in life to sit down and think about those things. So I am, I'm one person who has taken that sort of pathway from the publishing workshop and outside of it, but we've had fellows go on to like I think one fellow from 2019 when we were still in person ended up as a editorial assistant or editor at Stanford University Press, which is really exciting. Last year I felt like they just like blew it out of the park with going on for like I don't want to talk too much, but maybe Irene wants to kind of.
Oh yeah, no, it's been really, I mean, because I think especially like as such a young program, it's like starting to see, because I think everything just kind of grows and it accrues momentum as like the years pass, and so it's been really fun to get all these like emails from various alumni from different years, and in 2020 it was like very active about like various like jobs that people have gotten at Stanford UP, at Princeton UP, at Random House, at Asymptote Journal. I'm sorry?
Feminist Press?
At the Feminist Press, yeah. I mean, and a lot of these are also, you know, places where speakers are coming from too. So there's that connection as well. And they actually have like a whole like list that I just actually like sent to somebody, and I can't remember all of them, but there are quite a few, and that's been really wonderful just to see like that all these efforts on the part and the commitment and the investment that the fellows have made in doing this program really bear fruit as they you know, as they take their next steps towards whatever career they're looking for in the publishing industry. We actually just got a note from a fellow from last year, a couple of weeks ago, saying that, you know, she just got a job as like a buyer at a great independent bookstore in her hometown. And that was in part because of one of the panels that we'd had with a sales rep from PGW coming and talking about the work that she gets to do with independent bookstores all across, like, you know, the West Coast, and how exciting that was. And so, so yeah, so I think it's been really great to see that happen. And as Sonia was saying, to try and fill what felt like a very big gap for people like broadly, but I guess maybe, you know, specifically also for graduate students. Like that's something that I think also distinguishes our program a little bit, in that we do have all of these really wonderful partnerships with universities like UCI and other UCs and CUNY and USC, all these other universities and colleges, to create opportunities for graduate students, particularly graduate students in the humanities, to participate in this program and really think about ways that they can, you know, understand their training as having purchase in all these other contexts too, which I think, I mean, that was my own background, and something, as Sonia was saying, not to throw people under the bus, but I think something that I also didn't necessarily feel like I had a ton of, you know, of support or particular guidance in when I was kind of coming up through that. Not that, you know, again, my mentors are great and I had a really lovely time in graduate school, but in thinking about, you know, moving outside of the kind of more traditional academic tenure track, like how did I think about the things that got me excited about literature in the first place? Like, you know, and how did I think about the skills that I had really, you know, honed along the way in the course of that graduate training in a context that wasn't just for this one job. And so I think one of the things that I really have found very encouraging and heartening is that the program has also provided space for those conversations. I think at this point, our cohort's maybe almost half filled with graduate students or recent PhDs. And there's like something really like, you know, I mean, so we have like some, you know, workshops and things that are kind of geared specifically to that situation. In light of that, and being in those spaces, I just, you know, it was kind of interesting just to feel like the kind of collective sigh of relief that like everyone in the room had, and just like realizing, oh, like everyone else here is also thinking about these things too, and I'm not alone in that. And it's actually really nice to be able to build community in that context too, and find it exciting, you know, exciting to think about other ways of like channeling your passions and your skills and your training in ways that can be really exciting and like fulfilling for you. So yeah, so I guess our goal is to try and provide these kinds of pipelines, as you know, as you're asking about, like that's just in a very kind of straightforward, like we want to fill the gap that's been created by various kinds of structural inequities. But also I think specifically maybe more, you know, maybe also relevantly for UCI students, like to try and create like a pathway for students who want to maybe transition into a different kind of career trajectory. So
yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. I think that giving people permission to have these kinds of conversations and normalizing them, I think that is half the battle. You know, and I know in my own position, I really try to present academic positions and other types of positions as a both and proposition rather than an either or. And so, you know, but typically I think in the traditional sense of an academic program, you are usually thought to conceive it as an either or kind of thing. So that's great. And I think that, you know, providing the financial support also relieves you of some of the, you know, kind of the existential pressure that you might be feeling about making a career choice. So that's also really great too. If students have questions, should they feel free to reach out to either of you, or should they ask me and then I should forward those questions to you? Whatever works best.
Yeah, they're welcome. And we have if they just email the publishing workshop at larbofbooks.org, it'll go actually to both me and Sonia. So
okay.
Streamline the process and catch us both. And yeah, we'd be happy to answer any questions that might come up along the way.
Okay, great. Well, I am definitely going to circulate this recording amongst our various listeners. But if Megan and Kianru don't have any more questions, maybe we can just wrap this up and call it a day. But thank you so much to Sonia and to Irene for a great conversation and for giving us more information about the workshop. I wish I was applying, so maybe in another life, or we'll see. But I think this is a really great opportunity, and thank you for providing this opportunity. So.
Well, thank you so much for having us and for making this opportunity available for students. I think it's really wonderful. So hopefully see you all this summer.
Yeah, hopefully we will connect it. Hopefully we will connect in person one day.
Yes,
so,
that would be lovely.
So in the meantime, take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.